Hello world, I am Curtis Simpson, and this is Jective's Typography News number 29. Today is December 21st, 2025. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy solstice, winter solstice. What else is there? Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Whatever winter holiday you are celebrating, happy that. Sorry, I had an eyelash in my eye. Got a chat right before we started here. Green Container. Hopefully I'm saying that kind of right. Correct me if I'm wrong. It says episode 29. Let's go indeed. I feel like I'm doing like a book report or something, or a final presentation on like the last day of school right now before Christmas break. Little bit of a slower week, but I still have 5 quality new type releases for you. Could have padded this out. There were more than 5 typefaces released this week, but I think the quality of these 5 met the standard for typography news. And then I have 3 other stories for you. One about Volvo and Dalton Maag, something from Fontwerk, and then something from PSTL Lab as well. And then after we finish all that, I'm going to give my top 10 typefaces that I covered in 2025. So this channel didn't start in January. I didn't start typography news until, I don't know, months later, I guess. But yeah, so the ones that I covered in 2025, I'm going to give you my top 10, and I think that's going to be kind of fun. So let's just hop into it. Oh, yeah. First, I wanted to say 2 nice things happened this week. One, got a shout out in the Cape Arcona newsletter. Was not expecting it. I read like every Foundry's newsletter. It helps me get the news. Got a shout out in there about episode 27 when I talked about their Pixel. What was it? Yoshiro Pixel. And then also hit 30,000 views on the channel for overall this week. Sorry, hit the mic. Okay. Let's get into it for real now. Let me switch my camera or let me turn on the screen cap. There we go. I'm gonna leave my face up for this first one because we're gonna be watching the video, and I don't like to just have just the video up there. So first news story is Volvo. It says Volvo cars introduce typeface design with safety in mind. This is their press release. So I have this, I don't know if I have this linked or not. I think I have the YouTube video linked. But I do have some notes on this one. So they released this new typeface. There's the name for it right there. Volvo Centum, I think is how you're pronouncing it. It's by Dalton Maag, and this is obviously just a proprietary typeface. It's made for them. It's only available to them. Some people were asking in their comment section on YouTube, like, can I have this font? No, we're not. Unfortunately, us normal people, we're not going to have access to it, but that's good for them because then they can protect this. I'm going to go ahead and play this YouTube video while I'm talking in the background. Should we max this out? Yeah, we can max this out and just have my face on there. This was the 2-minute release that they put out. I'm just going to talk and pause a couple times over this because there are a few different things to note. One, they're working glyphs, which I thought was interesting. I know a lot of type designers do working glyphs. I think these rooms with the big projections and stuff, I think this is all just for the presentation to release this. I don't think they actually worked in these giant rooms like that. That wouldn't make any sense because this is designed for the UI that's going to be inside of the car. I do think it's going to be on other touch points, so let me pause it right there. It's going to be on other touch points later, but it's releasing next month in the Volvo EX60 electric SUV. But right here you can see it on a what would you call this? I can't even think. A business card for Dalton Maag, which doesn't even make sense. Because this is for Volvo, but you can see they've got it on that big iPad looking tablet that they stick in the middle of every phone. This right here I thought was pretty cool. So if you watch this, let me skip back real quick. One, it's interesting to think about how they test these, because they say like we rigorously test everything at Volvo, and this typeface apparently is no different. But you can see like the rig they got set up right here. I think this is probably accurate to like how they would test this in the office, in the studio. Have something like set up like this. So you can have like an actual like, here's how I'm interacting with the car and stuff like that. I think that's really cool. I would love to see even more about this. But I pause right here because watch the C on Centum. I think that's how you say this, Volvo Centum. Watch the C on this, because this is actually a variable typeface that has a legibility. So you can see it tighten up a little bit right there and then loosen up. So a lot of what we're going to see in these examples, like I said, I don't have this typeface, so I can't show it to you in Affinity or anything like that. A lot of what we're going to see are actually the display versions of this, but this is supposed to be a hyper legible typeface. And this is one of the perfect examples for where you would actually want a hyper legible typeface. And they're showing you a little bit of it there too. Let me go back. Sometimes you want, most times you want a very readable typeface. When you're reading like a full article online or you're reading a book, you want something that's readable. You don't want something like that's a hyper legible typeface, because it can be exhausting. But I'm going to pause here. There's too many good things to talk about. But when you're talking about a car UI, you don't want there to be any ambiguity to it at all. You want to be able to just look at a glance, see what you see, and know that it's right. You're not confusing a 1 with an L with an I. And then the next thing you can see right here is they're testing dark mode. So they've got dark mode and light mode. Typically in dark mode, you do have to thicken up your text a little bit, because the black expands into white, but the white contracts into black. So you can see glyphs again there. They've got them printed out on paper so they can make the marks on it and stuff like that. I think it's really cool to see this process. I would love to see a really in-depth interview with some of the Volvo people, with some of the, you can see the variable axes there, some of the Volvo people, some of the Dalton Maag people, and see how they worked through this together, because it's such a unique use case where they're doing a brand typeface, but also it needs to be hyper legible and work inside the cars and work on these dashboards and presumably work on essentially everything in the brand. So it's going to be starting out on the SUV next month that I talked about, January 2026. And then they said, a representative from Volvo said that they are going to be expanding into, let's just go ahead and loop this real quick. Said that this is going to be expanding into other vehicles after that, and then going into other touch points overall. So yeah, not something that we can play around with, but I do think that the reason I bring this up, one, it's just a cool case study in general. I wish we could learn more about it, but this was just announced this week, so maybe there will be more in the future. But cool case study. But I think what's most interesting about it is that we're continuing to see brands hire foundries and type designers to do bespoke typefaces. So this is super specific use case where they want the being inside the Volvo to feel like Volvo. You know, they're not going to use Roboto or Atkinson hyper legible or anything like this. So I think that it's a positive sign for the industry that people are still, big companies still find it to be worthwhile to invest money and time and resources into developing something like this with proven type foundries like Dalton Maag. Yeah, I just think that that's a positive sign for the industry as a whole when there's a lot of doom and gloom. I'm trying to point out the good things. Obviously, we're not going to shy away from the bad things if they're coming up in the news. But stuff like this, if you think about it in the bigger picture, is good. It's good because this brings it to, like, look at this video, 17,000 views about a Volvo font. Like, I wouldn't think that this would get 1,000 views, but 17,000 views in 2 days about a Volvo font. I think that that says two things. One, people care about Volvos, but two, people are interested in these types of things, and it does reach some sort of audience to where, like, if they care about Volvo and then they see that people talking about this typography, they think, oh, like, typography does matter. And we know that typography matters, but a lot of people might not. Let's go ahead and give this a like. So I think that it continues the trend that we've been seeing take place all year. And I think it's a positive thing for anybody that works in typography. Let me get a drink of water and we're going to talk about Fontwerk. So this is a quick story, but Fontwerk released a press release this week on the 17th, so 4 days ago, that they're going to start doing regional pricing. So I know that this channel attracts a lot of international audience. I'm from the US, I'm living in Brazil. I've spoken to so many people on here that are like me, where they're transplants, they're expats, they're living somewhere else, immigrants. And typography in general. I know we cover Latin typography on this channel because I only know how to read Latin typography, but typography is very international. That's the biggest thing that I've learned this year, is how international typography is. And Fontwerk is one of the people one of the foundries recognizing that, and they're talking about it here, how they're going to be pricing the fonts regionally. So sometimes you see this with like video games or software or Spotify or Netflix and things like that, where like Netflix in Brazil has a different price than Netflix in the United States. They do that because people in Brazil earn less money on a whole. Like the cost of living might be different and stuff like that, but like if you charge the exact same price for the US for a product that you charge in Brazil or another country, the people have to spend a much higher percentage of their income to get the same thing. To buy an iPhone in Brazil, first of all, we're gonna get on a little bit of a tangent here, but first of all, an iPhone in Brazil costs twice as much because of like luxury import tax types things. So if your iPhone costs $1,000 in US, now it costs $2,000 in Brazil. And that $2,000 might be 6 months or a year worth of someone's salary. Because I don't know, if you're earning $600 a month, okay, so I guess it'd be more like 3, 4, 5 months of salary. But still, you could probably buy an iPhone with 1 week of a decent job salary in the US. So 1 week versus like 3 months, it shows you the difference in like pricing. I say all of that to say that there has been a little bit of a conversation about regional pricing with typefaces, and Fontwerk is the first one that I've seen do this. I know some other people are, but Fontwerk is the first first company that I've seen like announce this year. I've seen this talked about in Q&As where people will ask like, hey, are you thinking about doing regional pricing? I know that in the I Love Typography presentation one time people asked that, and you know, people kind of like, yeah, we're thinking about it. Let me go ahead and put my face on the screen because I feel like there's nothing on here to look at, and we're just scrolling up and down this page. So living in Brazil, I realized that there is like this big price discrepancy. Like you kind of hear about these things like, hey, it costs way more for somebody living in India to buy this, or people living in this place will work for almost nothing compared to like what an American will work for. So let's ship all of the call centers and stuff to India or wherever it is. You hear about these things, but once you actually experience it, as someone who's lived in one place and now lives in another, it feels much more real. And I can appreciate something like this, where I'm just going to use Brazil as an example since I'm here, where someone in Brazil can purchase this for, I don't know, let's say 1% of their salary. And that would be equivalent to somebody with 1% of their salary in the United States buying the same font. Those prices are going to correlate for them, but the price will be higher or lower for Fontwerk. The balancing act with this type of thing, and I think why we don't see this very often, is because unfortunately, it doesn't really matter where someone else wants to buy the font when you're the person making it. If you're a single person like me, I'm the only person at Jectives right now. If I was pricing a product, I need it to reflect how much I need to earn, how much it costs me to make it. You know what I mean? So if you're a foundry, you have business expenses and stuff like that that correlate to where you live. If you live in the United States, or you live in Germany, or you live in France, you have a certain cost of doing business, and it might not seem fair to someone in a country with less buying power, less purchasing power, that they have to pay more of their salary than someone else. But how does the foundry earn money if they're not charging in their denominations? You know what I mean? So I know that that's a long-winded speech about a single subject. Let me go ahead and switch back to the screen. But it is to say that Fontwerk has found, you know, at least the ambition to do this. So I'm going to reach out to them. I would be really interested in doing an interview with them. Not right now, but really interested in interviewing them in maybe a few months and seeing how this is working out for them, because it does seem to be successful with bigger companies. If you look at any of the any streaming platform charges regional pricing. They can also change the offering. That's something that a Foundry can't really do. If you have a font, the font is the font. With Netflix, you can change what people can watch in Brazil versus what they can watch in the US. Steam, though, is a good example. There's a lot of Steam games where people do regional pricing, where it might cost one price in one country and one price in another. So this is a trend that I think is worth paying attention to. Do I know if it? I don't know if it'll catch on or not. That's something we'll have to pay attention to, and we'll see next year. Moving on. This is the typeface that we've talked about a couple times. I'm gonna let Adobe do their thing in the background there. Please, by PSType Lab. This is not going to be in my top 10, but this was on my list. I had to cut some. It was so hard to get down to a top 10. But this was definitely on my list of like favorite fonts from this year. I particularly love these specimens. I think Mark did a great job with the specimens for this one. They're really fun. They're really playful. And this font in general is really cool. We've looked at this twice on the channel, so I'm not going to dig into it too much. I'm just on this screen while Adobe Fonts loads in the background. But that's the story here. PSType Lab typeface, please, is now available on Adobe Fonts. So if you have access to Adobe Fonts, let me take my face off so I don't accidentally get it in the way. If you have access to Adobe Fonts, whether that's through a full Creative Cloud subscription or only subscribing to InCopy like me, you now have access to this. And I think this is a really fun typeface. Like I said, we've talked about this a bunch of times, so I'm not going to dig into it right now. Let me see what episodes I talked about this on, so you can go back and listen to if you want to. Episode 6. Oh, sorry. I saw my camera was off and I forgot that I wasn't doing a face cam. Episode 16 and episode 21, we talked about this typeface. Yeah, episode number 16, episode number 21. We did talk about Please by PSType Lab. So it's available on Adobe Fonts now if you have access to that. Quick story. Moving on. New releases. The first one is from, I don't know if this is Line 2 or Lineto. Like in my head, I have always said Lineto for this, but then I looked up and realized that this name comes from the PostScript command Line 2. So I think this Foundry might actually be called Line 2. I can't find it pronounced anywhere. If someone knows, then let me know. Green Container said, am I getting that right? Correct me, Green, please, if I get it wrong. Green Container says, and then there's dynamic pricing. Yeah, dynamic pricing is a whole other can of worms. Let me get a drink. I'm going to turn on my face cam. We'll talk about dynamic pricing for 2 seconds. Okay, let me turn on the face cam. So dynamic pricing is a whole other thing that I hope we don't see much of this year in typography. I don't know that we've seen much in typography, but you see it on stuff like Uber, DoorDash, things like that, where like they do this in Las Vegas too, where like the more busy it is, the more they'll charge for it. That's kind of been done for a while, but what they're doing now is basically using AI and using algorithms to figure out like, hey, let's see how much we can push this guy with Uber. Like if I use my Uber or I use my wife's Uber, we'll have 2 different prices because they're dynamically pricing to see like, oh, she spends more money on Uber Black, or he spends more money on Uber overall. Let's see how much we can like push the pricing on this. I hope we never see that from typography, but you know, there are companies that exist that would definitely do that. So good call. Let's hope we don't see that. But yeah, I have 5 really good typefaces for you. This first one is free. That's why I'm bringing it up first. So I'll give you the download link. It's in the description already. Container. Okay. Similar to container. Green Container. Okay. Perfect. So this first one is, let me look. I wrote down how to say this. Agip. It is Italian. I did see an Australian commercial that called it Agip, but Agip is the inspiration for this. This is a Christmas gift from Line 2. I'm going to call it Line 2, even though that sounds so weird. So everything is linked in the description. I always forget to say this, but everything's linked in the description. So you don't have to wait for me. You can go look in there and you can find the download link for this. It is free to download for the rest of the year. So I'll get that out of the way right now. This is essentially an inline version of their Unica typeface. Let me go ahead and pull up Unica for you. I'm just going to open up every single one of these tabs. Let's go ahead and look at these while those load in the background. But you can see this is a very Swiss neo-grotesque style typeface, but it is based on this Agip oil company that existed in Italy for almost 100 years, up until 2013. So this is Unica right here. Unica Black is the weight that they pulled this from, and where's it at here? And here is the download link right here. So you go here and you can see it. If we go to read more, you can see that they've done this a couple of other times where they've played around with Unica 77 and given out Christmas gifts at the end of the year. So this is only available until the end of this year, until New Year's. But let me go ahead and read the description for you here, because I think it's pretty cool. This says, let me see here. This year's Christmas gift pays respect to the iconic brand identity of Agip, Italy's, I'm going to tile these for us real quick. Italy's national oil and fuel retailer, which relied on a custom design mark based on accidents. Grotesk. Okay. It applies the same, this one, Agip 77 applies the same treatment that they used for this corporate typeface. So when I first looked at this, let me pull up, I don't even have Affinity open. When I first looked at this, I thought that the original logo was based on Helvetica, and it kind of is, but it's actually, you can see, it's funny that gas stations look the same everywhere, isn't it? Like this gas station could be in the US, could be in Brazil, but this one is in Brandenburg, it says. I'm not sure if that's in Italy or if that's in Germany or something. This one's in Italy though. Yeah, it's funny that gas stations look the same everywhere. Anyway, that's the logo right there. That's where the inspiration came from. They're combining this Unica right here with the treatment that they had done on the original logo. So the original logo here was a custom typeface. It says that it was a combination of, sorry guys, I'm so lost right now. I opened too many things at once and I shouldn't have. Unica right here was a combination of, oh my gosh, I'm so confused. I gotta turn on my face cam. I'm getting too lost right now. I apologize. Let me collect myself here real quick. I have notes. Okay, so the original word mark. Let me pull it up for you. I have it up here. Here is Agip Jeep 77. When I first looked at this, I thought, oh yeah, that's it looks very similar to Helvetica. Like you look at this logo right here. On the left with the crest on there, that's the original one. I have Helvetica next to it in the middle, and I thought like, oh yeah, that's just like an altered Helvetica. It's not. They made like a whole typeface out of this that has quite a few differences. Like if we turn this, let me go ahead and turn this into a different color real quick. If we turn this red and overlay it, let's just set this to 5, and we zoom in, you'll see that there are quite a bit of differences in here. There's lower contrast. The ascender or the descenders are much different. It's not just Helvetica. And likewise, this is Agip 77. This is the typeface that we got. I just have that little dot on there. Let me turn that off. I have that little dot on there that we can turn on and off. But I think that they come pretty close to it. They didn't actually change their, oh wait, yeah, I think they did actually change their, what they did was they lowered the A and they did alter a few of the letters. So it's based on this right here, Unica 77. which has a whole other story on its own, and they took the black weight of that and they added inline. But they didn't just do that, they actually lowered this A here. Probably should have put these both on the same page. I know what to do. Let's do this. If we just change this to Unica, and you can see how much higher the A gets on that one. So if I change this to Ajip real quick, you can see how much higher that A gets. So even though this is based on the same one, they did actually alter it. They didn't just stick a line through it. So I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool that they are just giving this away. You can see all the letters here, but if you're familiar with Unica or any of these Swiss neo-grotesques, I think you're going to be pretty familiar with this. It's free. If you already have access to Unica, or whether you do or not, if you have access to Unica, I think this is a great addition to get like an inline version of it with slightly altered characters and stuff like that. You could use the inline for you know, some special project or headlines or something like that. Continue using Unica for your main body copy and things like that. But I think it's pretty cool. There's a nice history that I completely messed up. I apologize. But if you click the links, you'll be able to read it because I do think the history for Unica is really cool. And then the history of like Ajip, this oil company, it all comes together very nicely. Let's move on. But free font, go download it. Free font, it's nice. It's from Lineto or Lineto. It's free and it's a well done typeface. I guess I could give you some specs on that real quick. 315 glyphs, 17 open type features. It is available until the end of the year for free. Can't pay for it. Good licensing on it. Moderate, all-inclusive sort of license on that one. And then there are 2 different styles on this, so I can show you that real quick. 2 different styles on this. There's large, which is going to have tighter spacing, and then there's small, which is going to space it out a little bit, so you can do. Oh no, those are large and small inlines. I apologize. Large and small inlines on there, and it does look like it spaces it out a little bit. That probably just because of that inline though. So pretty cool. Free font. I'm gonna take my face off again so I don't mess things up. But I apologize. That one got so mangled. This next one is from Tipografies. This one is a Barcelona-based type foundry. I'm going to pull up the specimens here, read the description for you, and we'll make our way through from there. So it says, let's be honest, other typefaces cheat. Their rounded letter forms require optical correction. They're slightly larger to appear the same size as their straight neighbors. Horizontype, that's the name of this font. Horizontype is honest type. It has no need for such subterfuge. The design has no overshoots. Okay, so that's the main selling point for this one. That's the main thing that makes this one unique. And you can see it gives it a pretty interesting mechanical look. I have a lot to say about this one, so I'm going to try to pace myself. But you can see at the top of the rounded letters, like the O, the C, the G, the A, even the B and the H, all of these that would typically have overshoots on the baseline or the X height, they don't exist. It just chops them off. And I think that it managed to have like a unique aesthetic. There is a monospaced version of this as well. It managed to have a unique aesthetic, but I think what's more impressive to me is that they've managed to keep the weight and the balance of it really, really good. You can see, like, you can't really notice the cutoff, that there are no overshoots at these smaller sizes. But you can see it doesn't look like the 0 here or the 2, like with those missing overshoots, it doesn't look like the type is too small. So I think that's what's really impressive here is that the typeface, even though it cuts off those overshoots, it doesn't feel like it would if you had the overshoots, or I mean, if you shrunk down and didn't have those cuts, but you just had the rounded edges, you know, because like the letters would look too small. So I think that's impressive. I'll be able to show you that a little bit better here in a minute, but I think that they do a good job of these specimens. So I'm just going to click through them for you. Did I skip one? Yeah, you can see here how like the O, it doesn't look smaller than the Z or the N. It just works. Okay, let me go ahead and pull this up on the website for you. Do I have the website link? Yes, I do. There it is. I'm gonna get a drink of water. It's not loading. There it is. So, like I said, this comes in, I'm not sure why it keeps switching. I think one of the fonts aren't loading there because there's not a serif on this. There's a regular version of this, Horizontype, and then there's the monospace, Horizontype Mono. Both of these are coming from Tipografies. And let me just scroll through and we can show you some of the details here. There are 24 total styles, so that's going to be 12 proportional, 12 monospace. So I guess maybe you could consider this 12 styles for each of these, 6 upright, 6 italic. You can see all the glyphs and stuff right there. There are actually 542 glyphs, 21 open type features. You can see a few of them there. There's some ligatures and alternates and stuff like that. We could click through these. They've got proportional spacing, old style figures. Purchase this directly through the Foundry. It's going to be $198 if you want everything, or €99 for each family, like either standard or mono. The license on this is okay. You could check that out for yourself. And it does have a trial, but we have the full version of it because I requested a review license on this, and Jordi Embodas over at Tipografies was nice enough to provide me with that. So this is Horizontype right here. I do think that it's nice to zoom in and look at these characters one by one. After reading The Anatomy of Type by Stephen Coles, this is something I do with every single typeface. Even if I don't show you this, this is what I do when I get it. I like to scroll through. I like to look at all of them. And as I was scrolling through this one, I had a thought. This feels very familiar. Here's the monospace one. I think the monospace one is even actually cooler than the proportional. I do think proportional is going to be much more versatile, but with these cutoff overshoots, I feel like this aesthetic works really well because not only does it keep the monospace going, horizontally, you get that monospace vertically. I mean, you do have some ascenders right here. We're getting below the baseline, but you do have your descenders, I apologize, but for the most part, you're inside of that block, especially with the uppercase, which I think is pretty cool. I always like a typeface that has the connected, the crossbar on the K like that. Okay, so you're getting an idea of it. As I looked through it like this, I thought, that looks pretty familiar. And the font that it looks very familiar to is this one right here. This is IBM Plex. So this is IBM Plex in the middle, right here. This is IBM Plex. On top is Horizontype. Oops, I'm actually going to move something on accident. On type is Horizontype. I thought that these two looked extremely similar. I have Franklin Gothic on here as well, because Franklin Gothic was actually served as the inspiration for IBM Plex. So I wanted to see the evolution from one to the next. If Horizontype were to be a derivative of IBM Plex Sans, there is no problem with that because IBM Plex Sans is under a SIL open font license. You can take it, you can make a derivative work. You just have to give attribution, and you also have to keep the SIL open font license. Horizontype does not keep that license. They have a retail license on this. So that's why I was interested in this, because there's no attribution, there's no SIL open font license. This is the mono. I think you compare the mono pretty closely as well. Then if we go down a little bit more, I wanted to look at the italic because with IBM Plex, I knew that the monospace version of the italic was based on the IBM Selectric, and that's one of the things that gives it this super unique italic version that you don't typically see. You're not usually getting this wild with with like a monospace typeface. And that's where we see the biggest differences. So the Horizontype is more of a slanted. I mean, there are you do have the F here that's going below the baseline. You do have some characters that are unique. The A's go from 1-story to 2-story. You have typical stuff like that, but it's much more similar to itself than it is this IBM Selectric italic version that we've got here. Anyway, okay, so I'm not going to keep going through. I'm going to go ahead and put this one on the screen. I'm going to put my face on the screen, and I'm going to finish this story because I found it to be pretty interesting. I'm gonna get a drink of water. I guess you'll have to watch me. And I got it all over my glasses. Okay, so I'm going to continue the story while I get this water off my glasses. I emailed Jordi and Boda over at Tipografies. I'm saying it that way because they're based out of Barcelona, and I just have to assume that it's not called Typographies, Tipografies. Hopefully I'm saying that right, Jordi. Jordi and Bodas, I emailed him and requested a comment on this. Like I said, he did he did send me a review license for this typeface so I could check it out. So we already had a conversation going. I asked him, hey, this looks pretty similar to IBM Plex Sans. What I've got going on here is I have the two fonts overlaid. Let me see which one's which on this real quick for you. I can't see which is which. Let's just turn them off. The red is Horizontype, and then the green is I apologize. The red is IBM Plex, the green is Horizontype. So I'm just going to kind of look through these as I tell you the story. So I talked to Jordi and I said, this looks pretty similar to IBM Plex Sans. Did you use that as a reference? If not, or if so, what is that process like? Because I would be interested in knowing, like, what is the process like for, you know, using a typeface as a base? Because we all know that revivals happen, but IBM Plex Sans is pretty new. It is open source, so anybody is allowed to do this. One thing to note on these, so like if we go in on the T, you can see that there are some different stroke widths and stuff like that, but they are pretty similar in a lot of cases. They're taking up a lot of the same amount of space. Anyway, he said, no, I did not use this. I'm aware of IBM Plex Sans. I'm aware of IBM Plex. I like that typeface, but no, I did not use that as a reference. I used it as a reference on a different typeface before, but I didn't use it on this one. I also simultaneously reached out to Bold Monday. Bold Monday is the designer, the design foundry, type foundry that designed IBM Plex Sans. And I sent them screenshots of both, and I said, what do you think? Does this look like a derivative of IBM Plex Sans? And Bold Monday said, it looks like it takes inspiration from multiple typefaces. Whether this looks like a derivative typeface to you or not, you'll have to make your own call on that. And I'm paraphrasing both these conversations. If somebody wants to see the, the receipts on this one, I'm happy to provide them. I don't think that there's much of a controversy here, though, because in the end, if the designer of IBM Plex Sans says this doesn't look derivative to me, and the designer of Horizontype also says I did not create a derivative work out of this, I think that that's where the conversation ends. So while to me, this set of characters feels pretty close together. I mean, they take up the same M square in a lot of cases, especially if you get into these lowercase letters. They have nearly identical widths and stuff like that. So that's why I started to question it. But if both parties involved say that everything is kosher, then I think objectively that's just where the conversation ends for the rest of us. There are some clear changes, like obviously the W's here. One of them is going all the way up to the cap height. The other has got kind of like an X height. That's actually a lowercase. One of these is going all the way up to the X height. One of them is cut a little bit shorter. There are some clear differences here, but I thought that they were pretty similar, and it would have been fine if they were. The only problem would be the font license on it, but they both agreed that it's not a problem. So yeah, case closed. I don't know if that story is that interesting to you, but I do think that it is interesting when you have to pay attention to these licenses and things like that. What do I think this typeface would be good for now that we've explored all of that? I think since this typeface is so similar, in my opinion, I mean, I don't think that there's any debating. I'm going to turn my face off. I don't think that there's any debating that these are pretty similar as far as being derivative works or not. That's another conversation. That's the conversation we've just been having. But I do think that it's undeniably that these are pretty similar. What I think Horizontype could be excellent for is headlines to pair with IBM Plex, because they do share so many features. I think these cutoffs could be really, really cool to pair with IBM Plex. And I probably should have created a specimen for you to do that, just because I don't think you're going to be setting large bodies of text with these no overshoots and stuff. The mechanical feel is cool. And you could definitely set some captions. You could set some sub headlines. You could set some small stuff in this. But if you were to set a full website in this, a full book in this, a full magazine, I think you would, I think it'd start to fall apart a little bit. You could get away with it, but it's just a little bit too different. For a lot of people, it might become distracting, which is not what you want in body copy. So I think it could be really cool to pair with IBM Plex, even if it doesn't have the relationship that I initially thought that it might. Next up is Zerk by Elementype. I'm going to pull up Instagram first so we can look at some specimens here. This is going to be on Future Fonts, but I'm actually going to pull this up on Instagram, as I always say, because Instagram loads a lot faster than Future Fonts does. But let me go ahead and read the description here as I click through this. It says, Zerk is a retro-futuristic display typeface built on calligraphic roots, exaggerated widths, and a pre-millennial flair. Never heard that term before, but it makes so much sense once you start digging into this. Its structure pairs sculptural curves with a geometric Its structure pairs sculptural curves with a constructed geometry, creating a balance between flow and exaggeration. The typeface frames a future imagined with optimism, joy, and mischief rather than ambitious progress. So I think the ambitious progress there plays into the fact that this is kind of like a futuristic looking font. And the fact that they're specifically saying pre-millennial, so they're talking basically from the 70s to like 1999, December 31st. Specifically like pre-Y2K. But I think these specimens are excellent, and I think you're probably getting a really good idea of what this one looks like. I am going to hop over to Future Fonts so I can give you some of the details. Let me see real quick. And after that, I'm going to hop into Affinity because they did send over a review copy of this. So, if I click more here, they give us some of the inspiration here. So I'm going to go ahead and click through these again as I tell you the inspiration, and you'll probably recognize some of it. Microgramma, Stop, Modern Texture, Serif Gothic, Review, Advertiser's Gothic, and Avant-Garde. And once you see all these inspirations, I apologize. I probably could have pulled up all of these to look at side by side as well. But that might be a little confusing. It look like 8 different typefaces at the same time. But if you're familiar with even 1 or 2 of these, if you recognize Microgramma and Avant-Garde, you can immediately see how some of these are coming into play. If you recognize most of those typefaces, then you can really see how it's taking inspiration from a lot of places. And I mention this every time we come across a font like this. I really appreciate when foundries and type designers point out where the inspiration came from, because I don't know, it's fun to know the backstory, but also it's nice to just admit, like, I didn't create this in a vacuum. I took inspiration. I'm carrying on this type lineage, and I think that that's a really cool thing. This typeface is going to come in 8 weights, extra light all the way to black. So I think we have them here. Extra weight all the way to black. Is there one of those pages? No, I guess there's not. Extra light all the way to black. There is inline and italic coming. So this is on Future Fonts. They're always going to have the updates and stuff like that, like we talk about every time. Inline and italics are to come in a future version. It's static right now, but variable is on the way. There's only 98 glyphs, but they're doing a lot with these 98 glyphs. Let me go ahead and pull this up in Affinity. They are making these 98 glyphs work pretty hard, and it's really impressive. So there's 5 OpenType features on this. You can purchase it from Future Fonts, $55. It does have a trial, but the trial is only going to have the light and medium weight, and then it has less characters, less features, until you buy the real deal. This is Zerk, so I can go ahead and show you the weights real quick. We got extra light all the way up to black. So we got 8 different weights. Right now, there is no italic, there is no inline, but those are coming. And then let's do the thing here where we look at every character. There are alternate characters. I'm going to get into those because that's one of the coolest things about this typeface. This becomes much more versatile when you see the number of alternates that there are, and you can see how tight this tracking is on this. Pretty impressive how good it looks. I think some of these characters could be a bit ambiguous, this W here, but I think in context it makes more sense. And this is a display typeface after all, so you know, with display typefaces you can get away with a lot more than you could with a workhorse typeface per se. This S, there's an alternate for that S. Don't worry, that one's not the only one that you can have. But I think the numbers look really great too. I particularly like the 6 and the 9 with those tiny little, I don't know, would you call those ascenders and descenders? Someone can correct me and let me know. I've just put together a couple specimens here where I'm using some of these alternates. So you can see that S right there. Go ahead and get out of this. This S right here is an alternate. If we turn this off and on, you can see that one is an alternate there. Actually, we're using some other alternate. Ooh, actually didn't mean to do that. You can set the alternates individually, or you can use like a full alternate set on this. So we got some Star Trek on here. Let's just go ahead and look at these. And you can see how the lowercase s is down here. They don't have that top part, but I've swapped in one of the alternates for this space up here. Similarly, you've got the A there, but if we go down a little bit, you can see there are alternate versions of the A. So in Starship right here for Starship Enterprise, we've got the one-legged A. This one here has got the diagonal crossbar on it. There are a lot of fun things you can play around with. There's an alternate K here. There's alternate E's. I don't know. I typed out a few different things here that I felt fit between the 70s and 1999. We've got Electric Light Orchestra, Super Soakers, Enterprise, or Starship Enterprise, Compact Disc, and Be Kind Rewind. And like I said, this is a display typeface where some of these characters might not necessarily work too well on their own, but when you see this in context, it works beautifully. And this one just so happens to also look like the cassette, VHS cassette tape as it would wind around those 2 little circles inside of it. So I thought that was pretty cool. This one was really, really fun to play around with. I did, like I said, I received this as a review copy from the Foundry, from ÄccentiaType, and when I reached out to them and told them how much fun I was having playing with the character, playing with these alternate characters and stuff, they did assure me that there are plenty more on the way, which is pretty exciting. So I really like this one. I like these, you know, spacey, futuristic typefaces. They're calling this one retro futuristic. And when I think you go back through that full list of inspirations, you can really see that. And I do really feel like this is a very optimistic future typeface. It's very warm. As much as like this is, you know, very futuristic and it's got some of those brutalist lines and stuff to it, it still has some warmth with those curves and the avant-garde inspiration. It just feels, it perfectly merges that like 70s, 80s, and 90s optimism. And I'm a really big fan of this one. So if you don't know Future Fonts, let me go ahead and give you the quick spiel here. Future Fonts, you buy the typeface right now, and then all of the updates that come are going to be included for free. So as more features get added to this, as more alternate characters, more, you know, the italic, the inline, the variable font, this price is likely going to go up. So if you buy into it now for $55, you'll get all of those upgrades for free forever. And it has a nice license on it. You can see here it's got desktop, web, and app all included. So Future Fonts is a great place to find typefaces, and we're going to be talking about them again when we get down to my top 10 because they were just ever present this year. The next typeface we have is also actually on Future Fonts. This one is Path Grotesk by TypeJi. Hopefully I'm saying that right, TypeJi. I've interacted with the founder of this one a couple times. She was very accommodating with this one and gave me a review license for Path Grotesk. And they mentioned with this one here that this one was a little bit calligraphic. Path Grotesk is calligraphic in a completely different way. You can see it's a very narrow typeface. But I really like this one as well. Obviously, I like all of them that I'm showing you today. But I think that this one's kind of like a sleeper hit. I mean, we'll wait and see. Let me get a drink of water and we'll get into this. Okay, so I'm going to click through these as I read the description for you. This says Path Grotesk is a warm, actually there's a big version of it right here. Path Grotesk is a warm condensed sans serif that incorporates casual handwritten cues within a clean controlled structure. The letter forms draw from the natural motion of a flat marker pen, softly connected strokes, and terminals gently angled in the direction of each writing movement. These stroke nuances soften the rigidity typically found in narrow grotesques. I would agree with that, giving the typeface a friendly human quality without compromising legibility or refinement. I think this is a great description for this one. You often hear me complain jokingly about the descriptions being too wordy, being marketese. Sometimes they fit in all of the right adjectives, and I think this is one of them that does that. It's accurately, it feels handwritten, but it's also very structured. It feels a little bit warm and friendly, but it's also still very refined. And you really can get kind of cold with some of these narrow grotesques, particularly. So I find this one to be very compelling. This one here has actually been in process. I looked back, there's a really old post, not really, really old, but there's an older post all the way from July 2024 where she's showing a preview of this. We're not going to get into that today, but I just think it's cool to look back and see this is something that was being worked on for, if she was posting a pretty well, I'll go ahead and show you. If she was posting a pretty well established, or how would you say this, a pretty well built out draft of this in July, I mean, the work that must have gone into this, there's probably already months and months of work that already went into this. And then now it's being released on Future Fonts a year and a half later. So it's interesting to see just how much time goes into these. And I don't know, maybe that's a reminder for some people to go ahead and take your time. Don't feel bad that a project you're working on is taking a long time. Stick with it, or come back to it if you get tired of it. But I'm not really going to need to look at inside of Affinity too much. We'll hop in there so I can show you a little bit. But these specimens are so good and kind of demonstrate everything that I typically would show you. So I'm just going to scroll through these a little bit. I'll give you some details. This is coming in two styles, regular and italic, as you probably noticed. It is static. I do think that this one could work as a variable axis for that slant there, but it's static for now. Glyph count 473, so that's pretty impressive. There are 10 open type features on this one. It's a good start for a v.01. There is a trial, but it's going to have limited characters, so you're not going to get that 473 that I've got. You're going to get about 90 or something like that. The price on this one is $58 if we hop over into Future Fonts. And once again, nice price. The license on this one is a little bit more complicated. It doesn't include the app, and I would just suggest reading the license agreement and see if it works for you, but it's definitely not a bad license. You're not going to find a bad license on Future Fonts. They have very good quality assurance over there, but you can see the regular and the italic. Let me hop into Affinity super quick and we'll just look at this one because I do still feel that it's worth looking at these characters up close. And I'm not always a fan of narrow typefaces. They've grown on me over the course of this, of reporting the news, but I really like how this one looks. Obviously, again, it's going to be a display typeface, but I like the disconnected strokes. Sometimes that can be, I don't know, somewhat of a hindrance, I feel like, but like this 3 right here, it just looks really cool, especially when you get down to a little bit smaller sizes. I don't know. It's got that broad stroke, like black letter feel to it, but it's so much warmer and so much more modern. And you've got the italic here. So I do think that this could go. Let me go ahead and show you this, flip back and forth between these. I do think that this could go on a variable axis because you can see that it's not like a true italic. It's more of a slanted italic. So I think there's possibility to interpolate between these. And I think this is going to be really cool if more weights get added. Yeah, I know when it's this narrow, you can't really, you're going to be limited in terms of what you can do for weights because if you get too heavy on this, all of the letter just mushes together. But yeah, I think it's a really cool start. And, if this is something you needed, I think the price is right. And Future Fonts is always a thumbs up from me. The last one that we have is coming from Dinamo, and this one's actually not going to be entirely new. It is a new release, but it's actually more of an evolution of an existing typeface. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. So this typeface is going to be called Camera, ABC Camera Rounded to be exact. ABC Camera Rounded from Dinamo. You can get a quick look at it there. It is an evolution of Camera. So Camera already existed, and Camera has a really cool backstory. I'm going to get to it in just a second, but I want to let you see both of these together because I actually think the rounded one is worth talking about. A lot of times I wouldn't pull up just an evolution of the same typeface. These are stories that pop up and then I cut them in most cases. But in this one, I think that this rounded one is actually doing the job better than the original. I'm going to come back to this. Let's go and hop into the story here because I had never heard of light traps. Maybe some of you have, but Camera, this was from 2022. So the original one came out in 2022. This rounded one just came out this week. This originally was playing around with light traps. I'm going to read this paragraph to you. It says, ABC Camera is a reinterpretation of light traps, which were originally used in the 60s and 70s to make text more readable on TV screens. Similar in logic to ink traps, light traps compensated for low resolution. When the font appeared, the screen's blur filled its holes so that each letter looked complete. Overall, Camera is a neutral, toned-down grotesque, similar in style to Helvetica. They got a little bit of a typo there, but with freer, less strictly defined proportions and a narrower body. I think that's important to note right now because I do think this Camera plane could be a solid workhorse to pair with Camera Rounded. So let's go ahead and look at Camera Rounded. This is Camera Rounded right here. It's got 721 glyphs, 5 weights. So that's going to be 5 regular, 5 italic, so 10 total styles for each one of these. So you have Camera Rounded Mono, Camera Rounded Plain, and then Camera Rounded Plain Mono. So a mouthful for sure, but at least it's descriptive. And I think that these are really interesting because, let me go ahead and pull up Camera for you. I'm going to tile these. So Camera is on the right, Camera Rounded is on the left. I think if you were to pair up Camera Plain, can we get Plain on here? Camera Plain with Camera Rounded, you could have a pretty cool 1-2 combo because this has 721 glyphs. It has the 5 weights. It's got these really cool light traps built into it that I think work even better with the rounded terminals because the rounded terminals just kind of feel more organically similar to these ink traps. If I pull up Camera right here, you got some pretty harsh lines and stuff, and it doesn't look bad. It looks cool. If I saw this 3 years ago, I think it was really cool. But when you look at it side by side with the rounded one, it just feels better. So they mentioned Helvetica. I think that Camera Plain could be a really cool workhorse, and then use Camera Rounded for your headlines and big things like that. It does have 2 axes, so let me go ahead and pull this up for it. Well, let's go back. I want to show you the OpenType features. If we scroll down, let's go ahead and get rid of this one. If we scroll down, we can see some of the features here. And actually, some of these specimens right here are Camera, not Camera Rounded. But you can see they've got alternate R, A, G. They've got an alternate T in here as well. So there are a few alternates. The coolest thing that I think is this rounded punctuation right here, though. So let me go ahead and pull this up. There's all the Camera Rounded Plain, Mono. I don't know that the mono version of this is working. Look at these giant gaps between the R and the A. And I know that monospace typefaces are always going to have some awkward gaps. But man, is that a big gap right there. But I don't know that you're going to be using, you know, I don't know what the use case would be for Camera Mono unless you were going to go, yeah, I mean, because you wouldn't kern this or anything. The point of monospace is to just have the mono. Anyway, this here I typed out just to have some punctuation on here. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. So, like I said, I think that these curves, the rounded terminals, work much better with these curves here. But these here are pretty, you know, they're more of an oval shape, this punctuation. Let me pull down here. You can see the period there. You can see the, well, the dot on the I is already different. But if we switch this, there is rounded punctuation. Click, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so rounded, actually the rounded punctuation is making the dot on the I less perfectly round, which is interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. But I do think that the rounded punctuation on this, if we zoom in on the circles, or the question mark and the exclamation point here, I do think these rounded punctuation dots and stuff are a little bit nicer. Obviously, that's just personal, my subjective opinion, but I do feel like those fit the light traps a little bit better, and those rounded terminals, having the perfect circles on there. So I like that. Like I said, there are a bunch of alternates on here. Let me see if we can just hop into some of these. Oops, not that one. You get alternate A's here. So you can go from 1-story to 2-story, the alternate G's, 3-story to 2-story. Go ahead and leave these on. You can get the alternate T's. So the alternate T on here is just going to have this bracket on or off. But I kind of like it on. I kind of like it off better. It goes better with those light traps. I don't have a G on there, do I? I have the lowercase g. Anyway, that is camera rounded. I do think that this could work really cool with the plain version, like I said. But you've got variable axes on here as well. So you've got the weight. Very nice. Let's zoom in on this. We've got the weight on there. And we also have a slant. So you can have this in italic. Which I think is really cool because a typeface like this, I think is just begging to be animated and played around with. So I think that one's really fun. And I do think the biggest use case for this is similar to the Horizontype and gosh, IBM Plex that we saw earlier, where you could use one for headlines and then use one for the workhorse. So I think camera rounded could be really cool to pair with camera, like the camera plane. I know this one here has the holes in it as well. But if you could combine these two together, I think that could be a really cool combo. Let me turn on my face. We're going to do something we've never done before, and that is a, oh, let me just turn it on here instead. I'm going to get it one of these times, guys. Okay, there I am. I have never done sort of a top 10 list or anything like that, but we're going to do one right now. This is my end of the year top 10, and I'm just going to open up all these in the background so they have time to load. I guess I could have done this before I put my face on. It was really hard to get through these. I didn't even get all of them open. What a mess. Okay, so I'm going to go through my top 10 fonts that I covered in 2025, typefaces that I covered in 2025. These are entirely subjective, and also these are in order of coverage, not in like a countdown of the order that not in like a ranking order. This isn't going from number 10 to number 1. This is just the order that I covered them. So they're going to start from the beginning of the year, going all the way to the end of the year. One thing to note is that, shoot, I can't remember what I was going to say now. I thought it was important, but it must not have been. Yeah, I'm just going to go through these really quick. We have plenty of time. We have 25 minutes. So maybe I'll stop and talk about what I like about each one, but let me get a drink. Let me get a drink. Like I said, it was a pretty slow week. I don't know that if I could go back, I don't know if I would go back and do this week. I might have taken my Christmas break a little bit earlier, but I'm not going to be here for 2 weeks. So I thought that it was important to go ahead and do this one. And this top 10, I think, is going to be kind of fun. Number one, or not number one, but the first in my top 10, that's what I was going to say. It's important to note, these are not ranked from 10 to 1, because it was so hard to get this list whittled down to like 10 typefaces in the first place. So go ahead and let me know what your favorite releases from this year were, because I'm sure they're going to differ from mine. I don't know if any of mine will match up with yours. But Magik Wanda, I really, really appreciated this typeface. This is my first time coming across Martha Sue Coursey. Her name should be up here. Yeah, Martha Sue Coursey. But I love the backstory for this one. It was based on like speedball, hand-lettered, influenced by the Vienna secession movement. It just took me down a rabbit hole that I really appreciated. And I don't know, there's something so warm and comforting about this one that I think in the right context, this could just be like a beautiful typeface, particularly for a brand that had a matching aesthetic with this. So first one in my top 10 is Magik Wanda, my Martha Sue Coursey. This is available on Future Fonts. You can see the price there is incredibly reasonable, $30. I'm not going to go through all of my typical speech with these ones. I'm just going to cover them, but they are all linked in the description. So if you see one that you like, go ahead and check it out. Not sponsored, not affiliated, just for your convenience. Second is from ÀccentiaType. This is Gieo text. I think that's the right way to say it. I should have pulled up the specimen. I think we could pull it up right here, the PDF specimen, because the PDF is really cool. Let's see if we can just open this. There it is. Yeah, let's look at this instead. I feel like the PDF does a really good job of showcasing this typeface. Let's go ahead and scroll it. No, we need the PDF. We need the PDF. I think this is an incredible workhorse typeface. I think with a lot of these, what you see is what you get, but this one has just a slight lean. If you look at this Gieo text right here, it's just got a slight lean to the right. And we've seen some other typefaces like that. They just kind of push you forward while you're reading. So this one had to be included. I don't think I have a lot of serifs included in there, but you can see right here, there's a slight slant to it. It's almost like a little bit of a bow. But yeah, there's something, I don't know if the colors are tricking me into feeling like this is a very organic typeface. You know, these colors are very organic. But there is just something, I don't know, there's something really nice about this. I like these alternating brackets on the H here, where you've got them going from the top to the bottom, where the top left doesn't have brackets, and then the top right does, and whereas on the bottom it's the opposite, so it kind of pushes you in that same angle. We saw some other typefaces like that this year, especially doing some of the book reviews, but I think this would be just an incredible typeface to put in long form, a long form read. So that one is from ÀccentiaType. I don't remember, I think you can get this one from I Love Typography. Click the links, you can go to buy Gieo right here. Yeah, I Love Typography. I'm not gonna check all the pricing and stuff, but this was that was a nice one for sure. Next one up here is Substantial. This is by Kel Troughton. Hope I'm saying that right. Troughton. I think last time I said that, I don't know how to say it. We'll say Kel Troughton. Hopefully I'm right on that. Substantial. It's very similar to Impact, except it has more weights, has more going on. If you remember the early memes, they all used Impact. Maybe they still do. This has a similar vibe to Impact, but as you can see, it has many more weights, many more styles, and it just feels, look at those different widths on this one here, widths and weights. It just feels like Impact for 2025, you know, like this is the upgraded version. If you were using Impact before, Substantial Sans should be the replacement in my opinion, and that puts it on the top 10 list for 2025 for me. I really like this one, and this one is still in progress. This one is on Future Fonts as well. I feel like we're gonna have a huge list here coming from Future Fonts. This one is $42, so probably cheaper than Impact, and it's going to be getting future updates and stuff like that. So I really like this one as well. Next up is another one that I think could be a replacement for certain typefaces, and this is Officer Sans. And this might seem like a strange entry into a top 10, but I really liked the concept for this one. And it was essentially to be a replacement for Arial and Helvetica. So it's to be a replacement for those office typefaces that you can't embed in things without really expensive licenses. So this one here was designed to fill the space. Let me go ahead and scroll down to the bottom because I think that'll make it make the most sense. Where's it at? I'll get there. Here it is. So this was specifically designed to fill the exact same space as Helvetica and Arial. You can see it is not a clone of either one, but the you should be able to just drop this in as a replacement. Arial was specifically designed to be a drop-in replacement for Helvetica and not mess up your lines and stuff. Officer Sans should be able to do the exact same thing. Oh yeah, you can see them right here. Here's the line length. So I was showing you just a couple letters there, but here's the line length on this. Make sure my face isn't in the way. You can see it's doing some things better than these other two. Most notably, if you look at the C's on here, I don't know if I can zoom in too much on that. I think they're going to highlight it. Let me go back up to the top. We're just going to scroll down. I'm going to go ahead and show you why I think this boring typeface should be in the top 10 list, or why it is in my top 10 list. As you can see, it is a drop-in replacement. It was designed to do that at in a much simpler way, because as we know, licenses, specifically corporate licenses, can be a pain in the butt. So they've made this specifically to be able to be an easy replacement in terms of the license and stuff like that. Not going to get into that right now because I'm more interested in these features. But here it is. They're showing you that you can use this in all of your typical Office software and embed it in there, because a lot of places don't have the license to embed their fonts. Let me see if I can find it. Here's a bunch of a checklist of important features for you. But I'm trying to get down to these accessibility ones, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it. Let's just see how much we can zoom in on this without breaking the website. What I'm trying to show you, if you look at the C's here, the C, the G, the lowercase g on it, the A, they're much more open, which makes them much more legible at smaller sizes, legible, readable, because the counters on that inside of the C, if the C is really closed like it is with Helvetica with those and Arial with those vertical terminals on there, it could be confused for an O at small sizes. Same with lowercase c. If you look at the L's on length here, make sure my face isn't in the way. If you look at the L on length, it's a straight line on Arial and Helvetica, which can look very nice in logos and headlines and things like that. But when you're reading, maybe sometimes, especially in an Office document, you need to know the difference between a capital I, a lowercase l, and a number 1. So they've added some legibility features into this while maintaining all of the, the characteristic that you would typically expect of a workhorse sans serif like this. So that's why I really like this one. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is kind of a sleeper hit. I think this one's worth checking out. It's a very specific use case, but everybody needs a good workhorse. So if you're using Helvetica, you're using Arial, I think Officer Sans should be in the conversation. Next up, we have Marie. Marie is from Typejockeys. This one, just a fun one. Sometimes you just see a font and you're like, man, that's a fun typeface. This is a variable font, as you can see. For all of these, I'm just scrolling through. I'm not going to give you the big in-depth. I really like these eyes that punch into the dot right there. It's very antique olive. I'm not sure if they're the first to do it, but they're the most prominent, in my opinion, to do it. I like that little punch in right there on the eyes. It lets the tittle be a little bit closer to the stem. And you don't have that on all of them. Obviously, if you see right here, you've got kind of a more readable version, but when you get down to the heavy you've got a more, a more readable, legible version of it where the dot to the eye is a little bit higher. But when you get into these big fat faces for it, the dot punching into the J, punching into the I is really fun. So yeah, there's not really much more to this choice than exactly that. I just think that this is a fun font, a fun typeface. It's got some nice features and stuff like that. But for the most part, I just think it's fun. So that is Marie by Typejockeys. This next one here is a very specific use case. This one's one we covered recently. Obviously, we're going in chronological order, so the rest of these are going to be pretty recent. Hopefully, I don't have too much recency bias on here, because you do tend to remember the ones you covered more recently and maybe think of them in a more, what would you say, positive light. But I feel like we had some serious bangers come out at the end of the year. So Shop Sans from Hex, Nick Sherman, is one of those for me. Shop Sans solves a very specific problem and is type on curves. I'm gonna go ahead and let this GIF play a few times while I get a drink of water. This is something that you would essentially need to have lettered have like a custom type treatment done. Otherwise, you're going to really screw up the font. Now, if you were typing on a curve that was much larger than this with a much smaller typeface, you don't need something like this. You could get away with it. But when you want to do these big circles like this, a typeface like this solves the problem in such a beautiful way. This one had actually like different styles for like bigger and smaller circles where you could like refine it to get it perfect. This is one that I'm really, really interested in seeing develop. It's I don't know. It's one of those things that you're like, you don't realize how useful this would be until you see it. So you can see there, he even had a variable axis on there that lets you refine the curve to get it perfect on there. So I was really impressed when this came out. I continue to be impressed. This is one that I'm excited to see developed. Like I said, when this came out, if anyone can expand this, if I would put my trust in anyone to expand this, invest my $60, it would be Nick Sherman. And Shop Sans, I think, is an excellent choice for the top 10 here. Likewise, this is, I think I could easily give this a number 1. I'm not going to rank 10 through 2, but Rotina for me was my number 1 typeface of the year. I said it when I covered it. In whatever typography news that was. Rotina, this typeface is just everything to me. It had the typical, neo-grotesque. Is this neo-grotesque? Hopefully I'm saying that right. Neo-grotesque? Yeah, neo-grotesque. It has the typical neo-grotesque, where you're looking at Helvetica, that types of typefaces. But that's got the script version of it too. And most importantly for me, it had a swash version. Let's see if they have them on here. I might have to go look at Instagram to get some of these swashes. You can see it in the L there. You can see it in the G a little bit. There were some incredible specimens. I'm going to pull it up because they were too good not to show. My favorite, this is my number 1 typeface. I got to pull it up. Let me, I apologize. Clicking on too many things right here. Typography News number 24 was when I covered this one. Rotina by Sharptype. I got to pull up the Instagram. New form type. This was published through Sharptype. Eric Marinovich, I think was the name. I tried to say that right last time, and I'm hoping I am saying it right this time. Should be right here. Eric Marinovich. I think I'm saying that right, Eric. Man, these specimens were so good. You can see all the swashes and stuff there. I think I talked about this one for like 20 minutes the first time that I covered this. This is my number 1 for sure. I guess I should have saved this for the end, but I did put these in chronological order, so fair is fair. This one was my number 1 for 2025, and if you can't see why, we have different views on typography. No, that's completely fair if this isn't your number 1, but for me, this is top tier just in any year, but in 2025, this was my favorite one for sure. So you can see all the specimens on there. Go to Newform's Instagram if you want to check those out. I didn't link those here, but if you go to Typography News 24, that's when I did cover that one. So I still have 3 really excellent typefaces that I'm equally excited about. They're just not my number 1, but these could all individually be competitors for, the top spots as well. Questline. This one was just so unique to me. Typically, I don't know if this kind of typeface would speak to me as much as it does, but you can see the alternates and stuff on here. And I just think this has such an interesting, an interesting voice to it that can be turned into multiple other voices. So you can see Dungeon Synth, manuscripts and printed books in Europe, the Equinox, like it just feels like it could be, it could be so many different vibes. And I love those diamond dots on the tittles, and then you've got the diamond dot inside of the O here. Yeah, this was just unlike so many other things. In a world of like, I just said my favorite typeface was neo-grotesque for this year, so no shade to neo-grotesque designers out there, but in a world flooded with neo-grotesque and Helvetica alternatives, you get this glimmer of like, ooh, what the F is that? And it's Questline from Sudtipos. You can see all the open type features. You can see all of the glyphs. It's a workhorse typeface. if you can make this work for you, because it does have a very specific voice to it. But yeah, I don't think that these specimens here are doing it justice, but hopefully you're getting a sense of why this is on my top 10. That's Questline by Sudtipos. Next up is Yoshiro Pixel. This was one we covered super recently, and this was actually the one that got a shout out in the newsletter I mentioned at the top of the show. In Typography News number 27, I covered this very in depth with about as much passion as I did Rotina, but there can only be one on top. But yeah, this one here, I really appreciated this one. This was a pixelized version evolution of Yoshiro. And I liked it even better than the original. You can see there are 3 different versions of it there: square, rounded, and blur. This is coming from Cape Arcona. I'm not sure if I said that. Cape Arcona, Yoshiro Pixel. And man, I loved the specimens on this one. I'm not going to pull them up on Instagram, but you can see, let's see if we can scroll backwards. You can see some of them here. They do have pixel perfect versions of it. This is one thing that I missed when I covered this the first time around. There are pixel perfect versions of this. Obviously, if you're printing, it doesn't matter. But I think it's really cool that they created those, and I completely missed it. But man, I don't know what kind of big brain effort would have had to gone into that. I imagine that it took more effort than just spitting out a font when it comes to all of the kerning and tracking and stuff like that. Obviously, anybody could make one character be pixel perfect, but to make a whole font pixel perfect is a different thing. But yeah, I covered these before. I really like this. Obviously, I covered all of these before, but I really like these specimens. Really like this typeface. Yoshiro Pixel by Cape Arcona. This is top tier. This is in my top 10 for sure, any year, but particularly 2025. And our last one here also came out super recently. This is a hand-drawn font coming out of Mota Italic, and I played around with this one so much off and on camera. A hand-drawn font that really just does absolutely everything right. It has so many features, so many hidden features. You can see the number of glyphs right here, 1,788. Designed by Rob Keller, 11 weights, 11 italics. There is a variable coming soon, which I'm super excited for. If I get that, or when that comes out, I might reach out to them again and see if we can get a review license for that, just to play around with it in the variable format. But you can see on these here, they've already got the variable going. It's just not released yet. But this one had so many features and stuff. You can see the little zigzags there, but they had these things where you could like cross out the letters. See these scribbles and stuff down here? There's open type features to where you could scribble stuff out. You could add crowns to the emojis. You could put frames around them. It's just an amazing typeface. And I guess that's going to be it. This is going to be the last stream of the year. Obviously, we've got holidays coming up. Let me go ahead and put my face on the camera. My face on the camera. Put my face on the screen. Face cam. There we go. This is going to be the last one of the year, and probably there's going to be less people watching this because, you know, holidays. There's more fun and important things to be doing right now, maybe. But I appreciate those of you who are hanging out today, and if you're watching this in the replay, I hope you're having good holidays. I'm going to be back in 2 weeks. That stream is going to be super casual. It's going to be not the typography news, but it is going to be on Sunday, same time, same place. It's going to be basically looking forward into 2026, talking about what the channel is going to be, what's going to be going on, because I have a ton of stuff that I want to just kind of put out there and be like, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and make sure that everyone's cool with it. But I'm pretty excited. Tons of content coming out. The things that are already here are going to be staying. Book reviews are still going to be around. The typography news is going to still be around. Just going to be expanding everything. Still going to be me, not expanding the team yet, but it's still going to be me. But I appreciate everyone that hung out today, everyone that's watching on the replay. All of the 30,000 views that we got this year, that's pretty cool. Over 1,000 subscribers. Gonna be able to do membership soon. Should be able to get AdSense soon. Yeah, it's going to be a good 2026, and I appreciate all of you that were here for 2025. You're the OGs. If you were here, if you're here watching this one, if you've seen any of the episodes before this one, you are one of the day ones. You're one of the year ones. But I am extremely optimistic for this channel. I think this is going to turn into something really special, and I appreciate everyone that's here. So I will see you next year. Crazy. I'll see you next year. Bye.